Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's tattoos are back in the news. A few months ago I discussed his crusader tattoos, but now it's his tattoo of an Arabic word, Kafir, that is apparently creating much outrage amongst Muslims. Before proceeding, let's first define the word Kafir, for it is indeed an important though much misunderstood word, and therefore something that you, an intelligent person, as evidenced by the fact that you're watching this video, should be aware of. The word Kafir, singular form, Kuffar or Kafara, plural, is almost entirely known by its connotations, all of which are negative, rather than its denotation or literal meaning. The trilateral root word kafara and its derivatives in old pre-Islamic Arabic literally meant to cover or hide something. In Islamic usage, a kafir came to mean someone who, after being invited or exposed to the truths of Islam, still rejects them, still covers them up or hides them. Hence today, a kafir is someone who rejects Islam, or in modern parlance, a non-Muslim. And yet, translating the word to non-Muslim or unbeliever, as almost every modern English language Quran does, completely misses the all-important and decidedly negative connotations associated with the word. This is incidentally why older English translations rendered the word kafir as infidel, as I often do. Although still an imperfect translation, it sought to capture the pejorative sense of the Arabic with one English word. To Muslim ears, kafir, singular, and kuffar, plural, are virtually synonymous with evildoers and enemies. In fact, virtually every vile human characteristic, and not a few connected to animals, is associated with the word kafir. As usual, let us turn to the Quran. It refers to kuffar as the worst of beasts, as cattle, and just as dumb. Kuffar are inherently guilty, unjust, criminal-like. They are the sworn enemies of Muslims and Islam. They are disliked and accursed by Allah. The Islamic deity is himself their declared enemy, who requires that terror be cast into their hearts. See this video's description for the verses that correspond with these unflattering characteristics. Again, this is how the Quran describes all non-Muslims, even if they have never once spoken against or harmed Islam. Unsurprisingly, then, Islamic law mandates hostility for the kuffar, unremitting jihad with all the death and destruction that has always accompanied it, at least when Muhammad's followers are strong. When they're weak, however, and in need of biding time for a more opportune moment, deception of and friendly gestures to the kafir, taqiyya, are permitted. Thus, according to Quran 9:5, Muslims must kill those who reject Islam. Quote, wherever you find them, seize them, besiege them, and make ready to ambush them. If that sounds familiar, perhaps it's because the Muslim ambassador of Barbary, North Africa, paraphrased this verse when explaining to Thomas Jefferson and John Adams why his Muslim countrymen were raiding American vessels and killing and enslaving their kafir sailors. As Jefferson wrote in a letter to Congress in 1786, quote, the ambassador answered us that it was founded on the laws of their prophet, that it was written in their Quran, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them, non-Muslims, kuffar, wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners. But what about Ahl al-Kitab, the so-called people of the book, a phrase the Quran sometimes applies to Jews and Christians? Are they kuffar or not? Although Islam's apologists regularly argue for the latter, Ahl al-Kitab, while marginally better, is ultimately a subcategory of kafir. The Quran itself makes this abundantly clear. For example, it says that those who believe in the Trinity, or who believe that Christ is the Son of God, two things all Christians believe, have committed kufr, meaning they are kuffar. See Quran 5:72 and 73. Incidentally, because the kuffar are essentially animal-like subhumans in comparison to Muslims, Sharia bans the execution of Muslims for any and all crimes, including murder, that Muslims may commit against non-Muslims, in keeping with Muhammad's own words. Quote, let no Muslim be killed on account of a kafir, as recorded in Sahih Bukhari and other canonical collections. This teaching is constantly invoked in the Muslim world, though people in the West seldom hear of it, meaning Western media seldom report on it. For example, several Muslim scholars and institutes argued back in 2008 that a convicted Muslim murderer should not be executed because his victim, John Granville, an American diplomat, was a kafir, and therefore their lives could not be treated as equal. In an Arabic language statement titled, quote, let no Muslim be killed on account of a kafir, which is verbatim from Muhammad, the legitimate League of Scholars and Preachers in Sudan, an influential body of Muslim clerics, began their fatwa by asserting that, quote, Allah has honored human beings over creation and multiplied the Muslims' honor over the Kafirs. Because Islam elevates and nothing is elevated above it. The value of the blood of Muslims is equal, or should be, to one another, but not so the value of the blood of others, meaning Kuffar. Similarly, during a videotaped sermon, Egyptian cleric Samir Hashish once explained, quote, "The Prophet said, 'Let no Muslim be killed on account of a Kafir.'" Again, that's the hadith of what Muhammad said. And he continues, the cleric, "Why? Because their blood is not equal. The blood of the Muslim is superior. Call it racism or whatever you want, but of course the blood of the Muslim is superior. This is not open to debate." Let's now return to Pete Hegseth and see what all the hubbub is about. Muslims, according to numerous media reports, are simply outraged that he dared tattoo the word kafir on his arm. But why? That is precisely what he is, according to Islam's own definitions and usage. As we saw, all non-Muslims are by default kuffar. That is to say, all non-Muslims are the worst of beasts, cattle, dumb, guilty, unjust, criminal, sworn enemies of Islam, and accursed of Allah, to quote the Quran. The problem is ultimately one of province. A highly offensive word, kafir is only meant to be used disparagingly by Muslims to describe non-Muslims. When a non-Muslim willingly appropriates it, however, and wears it as a tattoo no less, that is, as a badge of honor, then it becomes the ultimate act of defiance against Islam. It becomes a statement. Yes, not only am I a non-Muslim, but I'm all the ugly things you Muslims say about us and more. What of it? In short, Muslim anger has nothing to do with Pete Hegseth being a kafir, which Islam makes him to be, and everything to do with him being defiantly proud of it.